Welcome everyone, this is your host Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. First of all, this channel is proudly sponsored by Tetris Studios, the publishers and developers of Dames of Asstoria, a tabletop role-playing game where you play as monster girls experiencing high adventure in a world that doesn't fully accept them. They have recently released Daughters of Lamb. This is a pay-what-you-want tabletop RPG where you get to play as cybernetic nuns with guns, looking for the missing pieces of their AI god. You will find it in their website. The link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. This channel is also proudly sponsored by the Red Room Publishing. Please check out their store for exclusive tabletop RPG products. And check out their Micro Red category of games. They are ready to play RPGs with their settings and a streamlined version of the Red system. Definitely check it out. You will find the link in the description and in the pinned comment as well. Now, a moment, please, while I maximize myself. Mm-mm. There we go. Today, I wanted to answer a question made by Capstola0149 from Brazil. Hi, Capstola. Um, he has recently started to run tabletop RPGs, that is, as a dungeon master since 2021. Still, that is a good thing from the very start to see that someone is trying to perfect the craft of running a game. And he was suggesting or requesting a video where I talk about how to improve the player and dungeon master interaction and roleplay, and even how to immerse yourself more in the characters. Well, Capstola, this is actually a very easy to do thing. Rather, it requires a bit of, some people would consider it discipline, but some others could consider it more of an issue of short attention span. So when you're running a tabletop RPG, you're playing a role and you're playing a game. You play a role because you are the characters within the game world. You describe the actions of the player characters and non-player characters in the case of the dungeon master, but you're not playing the role of players and you're not playing the role of game master or dungeon master. So the interactions between dungeon master and game and players should be carried out via the fictional world. Everything else is related to mechanics. So when you describe your action in the present, in the now, I rush forward and swing my axe at my opponent's neck. The game master calls for a roll. Make your attack roll, right? The game master does that because there is no other way of indicating that the rolls should be made in an orderly way. If the player just goes, I swing my axe at my enemy's neck and immediately rolls, what if the roll wasn't necessary? What if there was some other sort of type of modifier? So that's why you carry out that orderly or structured way within the session. The game master describes the situation, the players describe how they interact with that situation, that encounter, etc. That exploration bit of the adventure. There is exploration, there is combat, there is social interaction. So the players describe the actions of their characters. You can also describe what your character is saying. Sometimes people confuse role playing with acting, and there are so many errors about this, or they even compare it with voice acting. Okay, geniuses, role play a mute character. Roleplay an alien species that cannot communicate via speech, it can only communicate through the projection of feelings. You see, that can only be done via roleplay. If you are roleplaying as an alien species character that can only communicate through sensations, either I direct emotions of hate towards the enemy in front of me. I send emotions of affection and love towards all of my comrades that have assisted me in order to escape the carnivorous plague, right? So roleplay is all about describing your actions. When it comes to tabletop role-playing games, the players describe their actions in the present, in the now. You can do it in first person, you can do it in third person. That is, you could do it, I swing my axe, I climb up the rope, etc. Or third person, depending on what has been agreed upon. Toner. Toner, that sounds weird. Like Toran. No, that sounds weird. Well, let me think of a fantasy name. Torkan. Torkan swings his axe at the enemy's neck. Torkan climbs up the rope. You see, third person. So depending on how the session is carried out in first person and third person, you only need to describe the actions of the character you are role playing as. And in the case of the dungeon master, you usually, I would say, all the time, you describe the actions of the non-player characters in third person because the dungeon master is running the entire world. You are playing the role of the entire world. You are describing the actions of everything that is under your control. You are not role playing as the player characters. So you need that the player characters describe their actions. You need them to describe their actions so that you can handle the repercussions, the reactions from the game world, and never take control of the player characters. The player characters are being controlled by the players. The players are playing the role of the player characters. So don't start describing how the player characters do this or that unless the players have already specified that and your description has to support their description. In the case of the warrior swinging the axe at the opponent's neck, you're, you're not going to say, Tarkan swings his axe vertically, chopping off the collarbone of the enemy. It's the neck, right? Not the collarbone, the neck. Describing the neck was being attacked. Or if there was some sort of random effect. There are so many variations just to Dungeons and Dragons and to many other tabletop RPGs. Perhaps you're handling like a random table to determine an area where the blow or attack lands randomly due to some sort of effect. Some nuance of the roll. Maybe if you roll below a certain number, you miss your intended target and now you hit some other part, right? So you need to take that into consideration. The players play the roles of the player characters. The game master or dungeon master does not control the player characters. He controls the non-player characters. He controls the game world. The same thing goes for the player characters. The players, rather, the players. The players do not control the non-player characters. The players do not control the game world. Just like in real life, we have control over our own actions. Everything else is away from our control, out of our control. The only exceptions in tabletop RPGs would be if the dungeon master or game master is describing that the non-player character is using a mind control effect, and only if the rules allow it or the context allows it, then the player character may fall under the control of the dungeon master, and then the dungeon master can control that player character because it is under a mind control effect, right? Same thing. The players could control the non-player characters if they use some sort of spell or psionic power or whatever that takes control over the non-player characters. So you could say that the interactions between dungeon master and game master are improved by role playing. You're not talking between dungeon master and player. The dungeon master doesn't exist in the game world. unless you're handling it like the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, where you had this little short not NPC that is actually called the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master doesn't exist in the game world. The non-player characters exist in the game world. The weather effects, the land, everything when it comes to the game world exists, but not the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master is playing the role of all of that. In the case of the players do not exist in the game world. Their player characters exist, but they do not. So everything is handled in the fiction, describing the actions and reactions of the player characters and non-player characters. Everything else, roll this. I rolled 60. All of that is mechanics. That's part of the game. That's aside. Remember, you are playing a game and you are playing a role. Do not try to eliminate the role play. Do not try to eliminate the game, or you will be playing something else completely, something very different. Even diceless systems still have that game aspect to them. You have values like strength 5, dexterity 3, and you compare those values with the task at hand. Sometimes it is handled completely via context, but you need to keep in mind that as you are aware that there is a game and there is role play going on, then you are playing a tabletop RPG as it is intended by playing a game and playing a role. That's how you get immersed by taking this into consideration. Immersion is not forced or artificial. It is something that comes naturally with roleplay. And again, I cannot put enough emphasis on this. You are not acting. You don't need to be an actor. You can play a role in tabletop RPGs just by describing what your character is saying. I ask the shopkeeper if he has silver swords on sale. Or if you want to act to have fun, to voice act, excuse me, I am looking for silver swords. Do you have any? Right? And this is even more clear. Remember, for example, in movies and in theater, the actors never describe their actions. They act. You won't see an like when you go to see an action movie, the protagonist isn't going to be, I pull out my gun and hold it with both hands and aim at the head of the bad guy. No, no. He does it. He pulls out the gun and shoots because it's a movie. It's acting. It's not role playing in tabletop RPGs. Completely different. So thank you, Capstola, for your question. I hope this was informative and entertaining. And thank you so much to everyone. I hope, yeah, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, consider joining as a member using the Super Thanks button. Take a look at the information in the description and in the pinned comment. This has been your host, Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. And remember, roleplay solves everything. Once again, thank you and see you later.